So without further ado, Senator Rick Scott.
So good afternoon. By the way, if you can't hear me, just let me know. I was a lawyer for 9 years, and I always wanted to do deals. So whatever you did, I told you that was my specialty. So I did oil companies, coal companies, radio stations, car dealerships, hotel companies, surgery centers, urgent care centers, whatever it was my specialty. And so I built a big transaction practice, but I always wanted to be in business. And so while I was practicing law, I was at the largest law firm in Dallas at the time. I made an offer. I raised $6 billion on the side. Not many of my partners were doing this. And I made an unsolicited offer to buy the biggest hospital company in the country. And my partners read about it in the Wall Street Journal. And unbeknownst to me, that we actually represented that company. And so they called one of my partners and said, is there a Richard L. Scott that made an unsolicited offer to buy our company? He said, no, Rick wouldn't have done that. I did. And it all worked out. I didn't get that company, but I did get that company 5 years later. So I always wanted to be in business, and I got to do that for, I was in business for about 20 some years. And then I moved to Florida. I always wanted to live in Florida. I always wanted to live close to the water. And I announced April 9th, 2010, I was running for governor. Then I found out you had to live here 7 years. Thank God it was my 7th year. And it all worked out. I didn't get attacked over that. I got attacked for being a business guy. So it all worked out. And by the way, if you want, you should run for office. It's a great experience. You get to meet the most wonderful people, and you know, if you get to govern, you get to work with the most talented people. The other day, a friend of mine out in Los Angeles has she used to work with me in the hospital business. She's got a very successful company that makes clothing. She's Indian, makes clothing, makes household goods. And she said she was having a difficult time finding good people to work with her. And I said, I never have had that problem. I've never had that problem, especially in the governor's office and Senate office, because you have a mission. And whatever happens every day, and I thought the same way when I was in the hospital business, whatever happens every day, you had a mission, and you could find, if you did that, you could get unbelievably great people. And you can find great people. And I had the opportunity to work with great people, many of them young people that we were able to give the first real big opportunity to. But it's a ball. So you should run for office, run for governor. It's a great job. I'm sure Ron DeSantis doesn't want anybody to run this time, but you know, you should run for office, and whatever you enjoy the most, you should do. So it's an honor to be here with the Federalist Society after one of the most successful Supreme Court terms ever. I mean, and by the way, the Federalist Society gets credit for what's going on. What you have done, what the Federalist Society has done all across the country, is the reason we have the Supreme Court justices in D.C., in the Tallahassee, and we've got great lawyers all across the state and all across this nation. For decades, the conservative legal movement has helped train young lawyers and future court clerks to think about the Constitution as the founders did. And that's exactly what we ought to be doing. They've helped thousands upon thousands of law students to see the Constitution through the eyes of the originalists, of the founders of this country. And we're seeing the fruit of that right now in these decisions. The court's decision to overturn Roe, to defend religious liberty, protect the Second Amendment, and peel back the power of the administrative state have all been fantastic wins for our country. And by the way, the administrative state, not just in D.C., but all across this country, run this country right now. We have given way too much authority to the executive branch of government. Our presidents have way too much authority. These federal agencies have way too much authority over it. And I thought the same way when I was governor of Florida. And along with many others, we have the Federalist Society to thank for all these wins. You know, one of the most important jobs I had as governor is appointing people to serve on our state courts. First off, I had 3,000 appointments outside the court system. And I was able to find great people to do that and really help start a lot of their individual careers, because you guys are going to be the leaders. You guys are going to completely change the state over the next 30 years. During my 8 years as governor, I had the opportunity to appoint more than 400 people as judges. I think there's a little over, Meredith, a little over 900 judges in the state. So we got to appoint 400 of them in the whole state. It completely changed the state. When I ran in 2010, all the complaints was about our judiciary, about the trial bar had controlled the entire judiciary, and then it was a horrible place to do business because you weren't exactly sure what kind of judge you were going to get and what the results would be. So we did over 400 appointments, and I had a great team. Jack's here. I think Tim's back there somewhere. Meredith's here. They got to pick wonderful people, and others help us pick wonderful people. So when it was time to make an appointment, I had a very simple question. I didn't say, what do you think about Roe? I never asked any of those questions about what you thought about any policy position. I had asked this: do they understand they're going to be part of the judiciary? They were not the legislative branch. And I told people when I was governor, I don't get to make laws. We enforce all the laws. And if you don't like the law, go over to the legislature. They change it, then I get to decide if I want to sign it or not. But if you're going to be in the judiciary, you're not part of the legislative branch of government. And do they intend to interpret, enforce the law, not make new laws? You get sick and tired. I'm a business guy. And a business guy, you end up in litigation. You get sick and tired of saying, why should I have to worry about which judge I get? I should get the exact same result of every judge. That was not the case when I became governor. If whoever it was couldn't convince me that they believed beyond, that their duty was just a member of the judicial branch, I didn't appoint them. If they didn't understand that they were not supposed to make new law, I didn't appoint them. I wanted to make sure that what we ended up with is a judiciary that whatever judge you got, you knew that they were going to enforce the law, the most important thing. By the way, as a business guy, you do not want to do business where you don't know where the laws are, what the laws are. You don't want to do business and get in litigation in some places. So as a business guy, what would you do? Don't do business there. People pick and choose where they do business. We all pick, as an investor, I'm an investor. You pick and choose where you're going to invest your dollars. I need to know they firmly believed in judicial conservatism, that is narrowly interpreting the words of the Constitution and laws as written by our drafters. Our country is desperate, as the Attorney General said, our country is desperately in need of qualified jurists who are committed to interpreting our Constitution and laws fairly and accurately as they were written. Sadly, right now, you can look around the country. We've got political activism all over this country. I mean, thank God what Trump did. Thank God we got 3 new Supreme Court justices that are interpreting the law as written. So it's dangerous if they don't for 2 reasons. First, it puts the courts in a position that they weren't designed to be in. Hamilton in Federalist 78 explains that the judiciary was going to be the least dangerous. It's the most dangerous. The least dangerous branch because it wasn't supposed to have the lawmaking power of the legislature. They weren't going to have any power to take away people's rights, which is what legislatures do all across the country. The judiciary wasn't going to be in a place where new constitutional rights were invented or the meaning of duly passed laws were expanded. It's dangerous to our system of government to put the courts in position where they are pressured to do something they weren't set up to do this. But that pressure to turn judges into legislatures is dangerous for a second reason. It removes power from the voters. So you don't get to vote in some states. In this state, you get to vote for circuit and county, but you don't get to vote for the Supreme Court and the Court of Appeals. You're stuck with whoever the governor is at the time and through the judicial nominating committee process. So it denies the voters the fundamental power they wield in a democracy, the power to have their voices heard through their elected representatives, and most importantly, the power to hold those elected representatives accountable if they don't reflect the will of the voters. And as the will of the voters change, you get new electors. So we need good judges who will avoid entering the political thicket, and we need legislators who are going to do the hard work of drafting good legislation that's easy to interpret. So here's my belief. Do your best to get involved. It's a rewarding experience. I've had a ball. I enjoyed being governor. The Senate's a different place, by the way. What you see on TV is exactly the way it works. Chuck Schumer will never acknowledge I exist except if he wants to attack me. He will not get on an elevator with me. I can say, hey, Chuck, and he will completely ignore me. It's a completely dysfunctional federal government. But the only way we're going to change that is it's really hiring, electing better people. And so as I've done all these different careers, here's my belief now. Your government impacts every bit of your life. Whether you're a lawyer, whether you're in business, think about this for a second. What percentage of your revenues or your income, whatever it is subject to a tax? What do you have to spend money on because of a permit or because of a regulatory environment? What rights are taken away from you? You have to spend a portion of your day getting good government. And if you don't, guess what? You're going to get a government that's going to take away your rights, going to tell you things that you never imagined they would do. Could you ever imagine a government that would dictate that you had to take a vaccine? That was rapidly developed, and tell your kids that they have to do that. You can't imagine a government would do that and just shut down an entire economy. It was the craziest thing what we did to ourselves. And think of how many people got hurt. And a government that said, we're going to pay 80% of Americans more not to work than to work, and think people are going to keep going to work. This stuff is crazy what's going on. We now have $30 trillion worth of debt. The Democrats right now, they want to spend another $1 trillion just in the next 2 months. And here's an example. Here's an example of something just happened. You know, after Parkland, I was just on a panel this morning with Moms for Liberty, and we were talking about what happened after Parkland. After Parkland, we came together with educators, law enforcement, mental health counselors, the legislature. We passed historic legislation that we had risk protection orders that had due process. We just passed legislation in D.C. that gave money all across this country with no due process. No due process. So in America, in most states, if you have domestic violence against your wife, you lose your gun. You have to go back through the court system and get your gun back. You know what the legislation we passed said? If you do it to your girlfriend, that's okay because you'll get your gun back in 5 years automatically. You can't make this stuff up. So we have to get more people to get involved in the process. And by the way, you don't have to run for office. You don't have to decide to be a judge. You can work in a governor's office, or you can just help people get elected. This is your government. And if you don't, you're going to end up with a government that you'll despise.